What is going on, you guys? So today I have another super quick episode for you. This one is from a guy named Lewis Howes, and his podcast is The School of Greatness. So he's interviewing two guests here named Sadia Khan and Matthew Hussey. And this episode is called The Emotional or the Unhealthy Emotional Addictions That Ruin Your Relationships. Let's hop into it.
What would you say are the most addictive, I guess, emotions that are unhealthy that people get addicted to when they're dating and they're starting a relationship? What are those unhealthy addictions around emotions?
In my personal experience of working with clients that come to me, particularly men, when they come to me and they're in these kind of addictive habits, they get addicted to shallow substances like appearance and sex. Usually when they find themselves in emotionally abusive situations, it's because they've placed all of their satisfaction in her appearance and the sexual gratification they receive. And it's almost like a shortcut to an ego boost, and they place that on a pedestal, and that becomes their conflict resolution is sex. It becomes their form of status, is that she gives them that appearance when they walk around. They don't look for somebody on the same level of them in terms of appearance. They shoot above their shot. They go a bit higher than what they should be going for. And as a result, they become like a slave and submissive to her behavior simply because she possesses that sexual quality that they've been craving for a really long time. Man. Particularly if they're a man who haven't had access to women throughout their childhood and throughout their life. And so when they do meet a beautiful girl, they allow her beauty to determine their attachment rather than her character. And that becomes very addictive from a male gaze, in my experience. And I don't know as two men, but does sex have that much of a power over them where they can blur their vision on all other characteristics?
I hate to say this, but
I'm curious about what they're going to say here, because I wonder, like, from what perspective she was speaking from there, right? Like, she said guys shooting above where they're at, right? I mean, because girls do that all the time, right? Or women do that all the time. Is like they want the best option for themselves. So, I mean, we're human. Like, on both sides, we want the best option for ourselves. So, like, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't necessarily believe in leagues. But at the same time, I wonder, like, what perspectives that she was talking about. Like, is it just from a looks standpoint? Because, like, something worth mentioning is, like, you know, someone can look like a quote-unquote 10, like, they can be, like, very attractive, but in terms of, like, their personality or their character, they might not be a 10. You know what I mean? They're attractive, and people might, out on the outside, be like, oh, how did they get together? But, like, realistically, their personalities, or maybe they're like a match in a different way, like, because you're a magnet for someone who's on like a similar chapter as you or similar wavelength. So once you're able to, let's say, elevate and get to a higher level, you start attracting people who are at that level with you, right? You know who to avoid, who is a better fit for you. So I'm really curious where this is going.
Guilty of this in the past.
It happens?
Well, I mean, it's blinding for a period of time until it isn't.
Right.
So and when you think that the character is also there, then you're like, wow, this is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. But then, you know, I personally, you know, just experienced in my past, I was kind of blinded by that, the beauty and the sexual attraction. And then when I realized that certain values weren't consistent with words, they weren't matching, over time, you get disinterested in the beauty. You're like, okay,
does
this
it
is
take
exhausting.
something to snap men out of that?
Well, that's kind of like what I was saying, right? Like it's not just the beauty. Like, eventually you get to know who they actually are, and especially if you are with them long enough, right? Like, the beauty fades, right? And of course, it's important for them to keep, like, on both sides, right? Men and women, for us to keep up our appearance, stay healthy, work on our body, eat the right things, all that good stuff, right? Like, there's no excuse for letting ourselves go, right? And honestly, you've seen a lot of situations where people lost attraction because of that situation. Now, he's saying something important, like what I was saying earlier, is like, the beauty isn't everything, because if you know these things about their character, like, if they've got an amazing character and the beauty, you're like, wow, like, this is great. And if they just have one or the other, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to sustain, let's say.
When they're in that kind of intoxicated stage, pain,
suffering, heartbreak, sadness, depression, you know, it's like a dis-ease, whether it be an emotional dis-ease or physical dis-ease. For me, I think it was kind of both. Whereas, like, I had to just feel like, man, I don't feel myself. I feel like I'm giving up who I am to try to please someone else, and they're never happy. No matter what I do, how much I change, who I become, it's not enough. And it was exhausting.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I realized, oh, okay, I chose a certain relationship based out of a wound. Everything you were saying was like speaking to my, like, wounded child. It was like, okay, yeah, no girls liked me when I was younger. You know, I didn't have any attention.
Did you suffer with that? Because you were an athlete, no?
You know, when I was in my teens, it changed. When I was younger, it was like you didn't get the attention. So when I was choosing based out of a wounded me. It was like, oh, okay, here's this beautiful opportunity or this experience or whatever it might be. And that was captivating in some ways, right? That was pulling me in, drawing me in.
And so it made you forgive other unacceptable behavior in the moment?
In the moment, but then you know, after a period of time, it was like, okay, you wake up. I woke up.
Yeah.
And I think those lessons allowed me to have wisdom and being like, okay, well, that's not really everything. You know, just beauty and sexual connection is not, does not necessarily mean long-term happiness in a relationship. Maybe, you know, maybe it is, but there has to be other values and things that match, things like that.
It shouldn't be the primary filter, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you're saying that a lot of men that you're working with, that you see, get addicted to sexual connection or beauty
and attractiveness,
and attractiveness first, and how it makes them feel.
Yeah, they'll come to me believing it's some childhood trauma and they'll think it's that, but really it boils down to how much of a priority they've made sex and beauty. And I know it's difficult in this day and age with the advent of pornography and social media, where beauty is the main kind of component of women that we're seeing, but it makes them stuck in a way that they can't explain to themselves. And only when I say, is the sexual chemistry the best you've had? And they're like, yes, it's the best I've ever had. The moment I hear that, I'm like, that's why it's become your glue.
They're addicted to it.
They're addicted to it.
So, and this is something that I think people should try. If they've found themselves in kind of addictive patterns in previous relationships, try being with someone and not having sex for a period of time. Wait as long as you can. I'm not saying wait forever, but you know, wait a month, 2-3 months. For me, you know, with Martha, we waited for a long time, and it allowed me to say, do I actually want to spend time with this person if we don't have sex? And I would want everyone to ask themselves the question, if I did not have sex with the person I'm dating right now, would I want to be with them?
Exactly.
Or would it be too much stress and trouble?
Would I be addicted to them?
Yeah, but exactly. I don't know. What do you see women?
That's such a good point. Like, would you be addicted to them, or would you have the? Because really, you're probably not in love with them, or you know what you think. Like a lot of times when people say that, it's an attachment and not actually love. Now, I mean, certain situations it is, right? Actually love, but like realizing what he's talking about, right? You've got the sexual addiction, maybe it's a childhood wound, like all these different situations. So it's important to become aware of that. Like are you simply wanting their validation? Like what exactly is it? Or is there actually a deep connection there? Like you have everything, like the compatibility, the chemistry, and the connection. Because that last point he made is so important. Like a lot of guys, I think they get to the point, or hopefully they'll get to the point, because a lot of guys, you know, or people in general, right? They just like go too quickly into like a intimate relationship, like sexually, and the chemistry with that one comes along with that, and so it kind of gives you this brain fog. It's like throwing sand up in your eyes to like what he said, like, would I actually want to hang out with this person? Do I actually really like this person? Is there actually a good connection before the sexual chemistry, right? Because like what he's saying, like this is probably something that's really difficult for a lot of people, but like waiting a while before getting intimate first shows you're sort of on a different gear, like you know, in a car, like shifting gears. It's like you're on sort of like a different level. Like, you know, for whatever reason, you're at a point where whether you used to get intimate too quickly maybe, or maybe you didn't, whatever the reason is, like you've come to a realization that like, okay, there's more to it than that, and I gotta avoid this, like I gotta navigate this in a way where I have more clarity, no brain fog, right? And I actually can make a logical decision, not just a chemical based decision, right? You can actually be like, is this person a good fit for me long term? And testing that out, like what they're talking about, like waiting a while, maybe a few months, or like as long as possible before hooking up, right? Which is like a super interesting point. I know that's something that's challenging for a lot of people, but I mean, again, like you can see like there's a high percentage that it'll have like a massive difference on your relationship. I'm not dismissing the importance of sexual chemistry, right? Because that's an important part too, but you have to acknowledge some of these things that they're talking about, because you know, it's like you have a blindfold if you let those things happen first, and there's too much emotion and chemicals in the way of you making clear decisions, let's say.
In your perspective, struggling with in terms of the emotional addictions in dating or in relationship patterns, what is that? Is it sex chemistry, or are you seeing something else with the women you work with?
I was going to say, I feel like you guys are giving women too much credit. You're letting them off a little lightly here.
I don't get access as much to the female perspective, and it's the same kind of, you would imagine?
I don't think there's, I'm not seeing a huge difference between men and women in this department at all.
Oh, wow, interesting.
I think that women get attracted sexually. They get attracted to someone's looks, to, you know.
Is it more the sexual or the material or the status that women are attracted to? Like, here's a beautiful, handsome man, a sexy man, or is it more, oh, he's got status and money and that makes him sexy?
I think the myth is that it's just all women go around looking for status and money, and that, you know, when they see status walk into a room, they're like, yes, please. And if that were true, then every
with that.
rich dude that walked into a room would be the hottest property around. And we just know that's not true. A lot of guys who make a lot of money get to that point and realize, oh my God, I need help in meeting women.
Really?
Because I'm not good at it.
They struggle the most.
Yeah, because they've spent, so many men spend their whole lives trying to achieve a certain level of status or money, thinking that at some point there's going to be a door they're going to open in the money world or the status world. And when they walk through that door, all of a sudden, women are going to come flocking.
It doesn't happen.
And by the way, that's such a good point. Like you don't want to be the guy, because you think that. Like, you think, focus on yourself, king. You get your money up, you get your fitness up, you're looking good, you're feeling good, and you're confident in everything else. And then you realize, wait a minute. Or maybe you don't realize, and then you fall into a big dumpster fire of a relationship, right? Because like you're like, oh, I actually don't know what I'm doing with women. I don't understand anything about dating dynamics, mating dynamics, female nature, any of this stuff, right? So the thing he was just saying, like, there's so many guys that do that. Like, they level everything else up, and even if they've dated a little bit, like, they're a little bit blind or naive to their lack of experience or lack of knowing how to filter or vet for a great quality woman. And that example that he just gave there, right? It's like, if you get into that situation, you forget that you're almost leading with your wallet too, especially with the finances thing, right? It's like, it's not just that. And I know a lot of guys like to think that, or there's like some kind of like coping mechanism around it, but like think about that. Do you really want her to just want you for your money? Or do you want her to find out that you can take care of business like that, but you didn't lead with money, right? Like buying her time, or like guys, you know, they'll go to a bar and like try to buy a girl a drink. You shouldn't be doing that, right? Because you're leading with money again, right? Taking her out to a fancy restaurant for the first date, picking her up in a fancy car, like all this stuff she should find out about you. But you need to build your character as well, your personality, be learning, be an interesting person, and be able to have an amazing relationship, because like having your character built is exactly what they're talking about. Like you can avoid these pitfalls if you become the whole package. So level everything up at once, and don't make the excuse that it's okay to just level up your finances or just level up your fitness. Or there's some guys that are like, quote unquote, like good at dating, right? Like they just are good at dating, but their finances or their fitness isn't in order, right? So like, you know, there's an imbalance. Instead of like stopping making excuses and just leveling everything else up at once.
And then they find that they're the lonely guy at the party who no one's talking to. And it turns out it still matters to be able to go and talk to someone. It still matters to be able to carry yourself in a certain way where there's something about you, or there's an ability in conversation. So I keep losing out to the 25-year-old dude, a hot surfer who's broke, who walks into the room and is the one getting the attention. Yeah. So I think there is this myth among men that all our problems will be figured out if we could just make enough money and if we could just get enough status. And I think there's this myth among women that, or about women, that they're not interested, like they're not driven in by charisma and looks and sexiness, and that, you know, they don't care about those. Men are superficial. They care about those things. Women don't care about those things. Not my experience. My experience of women is that they're just as interested in all of those superficial things that can lure any of us away from deeper values or how someone treats us.
Yeah.
It's not to say that there's not an appeal for some people to someone who's got their life under control, but no, I don't think we should let women off so lightly when it comes to being attracted to the superficial.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's a really good point. You know, like you said, like women are just as attracted, if we are, if not more, right? So like not letting them off the hook there is. I'm glad that he brought that up. Well, anyways, I think they made some great points. All of them have great YouTube channels and podcasts of their own. Sadia Khan, Matthew Hussey, Lewis Howes was the host of this one. It was cool that he had both of them on, because they're sort of like, you know, they talk a lot about like dating dynamics. So good to have both perspectives. And anyways, I hope this episode was helpful for you guys in some way, and you're able to utilize it in your own life to level up. Awesome, guys. Well, Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. You got this, bro.